Hello, g'day. Welcome to Shooting the Breeze with Lady Liberty. I am your host, Lady Liberty, or Kate Fantanell, and I'm once again excited. Every time I do this show, I'm so excited because I have the honor and pleasure of meeting so many interesting people in my travels and journey around the libertarian and liberty space. And today I have joining with me a very special friend that I met at Friedman Conference earlier this year. She is living in my home state. She's in Adelaide, South Australia, but she is all the way from Argentina. So you can guess what we'll be talking about. Dr. Melisa Albisetti, did I say that correctly?
Perfect.
It's because I'm half Italian, so the Latin language, we've got a similar crossover there. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me. How are you?
Hello, Lady Liberty. Thank you so much for having me and for inviting me. Much
I'm so
appreciate it.
excited. So
Apologize about my voice, as I said before.
Oh, there's something going around. Everyone in Perth is sick at the moment too, but COVID's not going to ruin Christmas for anyone ever again. I
Hopefully
swear
not.
on my grandfather's grave. We might have the Honourable John Ruddick, MLC, the Libertarian New South Wales representative. He's meant to be joining us. He was at the inauguration of the new president, Javier Milei. So I really want him on the show. I've sent him the link. He's probably busy running around Sydney doing other interviews. We love JR. He's such a character. But today we will start with Dr. Melisa Albisetti, which is more than enough as a guest. So,
Appreciate it.
Melissa, can you tell us a little bit about you? Where are you from in Argentina? How did you end up in Australia? And how did you become a libertarian when Argentina was Peronism, socialism, far left? How did you end up here?
Well, I come from a city, a coastal city called Mar del Plata, which is 400 kilometers southeast of Buenos Aires. Compared to the Gold Coast of Argentina, let's say, very beautiful city. I've studied my degree in geography, and then I got a scholarship and I did my PhD in geography. And at that point in time, I was working on climate change, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've decided to come to Australia because, as I said before, I grew up in a very left-wing country, very Peronist, very. When we're talking about Peronism, we're talking about fascism, basically, and which is a mix of left-wing, right-wing, definitely. Very, very powerful. The size of government should be big. The government should be looking after all us. That's what we call the nanny state. And I decided to leave Argentina because at that point in time, and still today, we have a rampant inflation, insecurity, criminal rate all over the roof. At this point, I wanted to have a much better future. Half of my family lives in Australia. My cousin Gaz lives in New South Wales. He lives in the Central Coast. So I had the opportunity to come to Australia many times before actually migrating to Australia. And I love the country since I put a foot in this beautiful country. So um, I became libertarian. Actually, I've chosen Australia because if you go through the guidelines, it's one of the freest countries in the world. We might not head in that direction uh, today. In that sense, we're still free, but we can discuss it later. But it was a much better country to live than Argentina, definitely. So I applied for skilled visa. At that point, I got a regional visa. I had to come to live in Adelaide, in regional Australia. Adelaide is considered regional. And since then, I've been living here. I work for Flinders Uni, a couple of jobs for CSIRO. I've been working for private local governments. And I became libertarian. Why I became libertarian? That's a very good question. And this is something we've been speaking before. Like I became libertarian because thanks to the market, thanks to YouTube. One day I was watching YouTube and I saw a beautiful young political scientist called Gloria Alvarez. She is from Guatemala.
Mm.
And she called my attention straight away. And she was saying things that I couldn't hear before because liberalism, libertarianism, free market enterprise, free ideas are banned at university. Actually, if you're not left wing, you don't pass. I mean, you might, but you don't want to put yourself into that position when you go through your exams. So every single bibliography or references you have to read for to pass your test and your subjects. It's radical left. Um, so at this point, I was listening to Gloria Alvarez, and I got amazed for by those ideas, and I started reading and digging and learning, and I said, no, this is what I am. This is what I want for me and for my future generations. So this is how I became libertarian. Um, and yeah, I'm planning to do my masters of economics this year, so I'm full on.
Wow. I had the pleasure of meeting Gloria at Mancow here in Perth when she came and gave a presentation a few
Yeah.
years ago now. And you yourself were here in Perth giving a presentation at
Yes, yeah,
Mancow.
I couldn't believe it. Yes, I was
Yeah.
going to go to not to Perth, but to Sydney to meet her. And I got a book from her. My very good friend Ivan got me a book from her, and she dedicated to me. And yeah, that was during COVID. I think she gave her presentation at Mankel, and then everything had to be postponed because, well, as we know, all the states basically shut down and
Mm.
everything was cancelled. But yeah, she was on her Australian tour. Yeah, it was. She's an amazing young leader. She's my age, and then she's someone that I really admire.
Great. Yeah, we were talking before about how Argentina has swung, the pendulum has swung from socialism, Peronism, which we'll talk about. I really want to talk to you about Eva Peron. I remember I met you in Sydney and I said that was one of the first things I said to you because I'm fascinated with her as a cult figure. Not that I agree with her ideology at all, but her passion for the working class, and she didn't like how the poor were so poor. So her solution was the state. And as libertarians, we don't think the state is the solution. We should think there should be a safety net, but we're all about empowering the individual, which Javier Milei, the new president, has also stated that's where he's coming from, which is why libertarians are so excited to see what's happening in your country. So we were talking about how did your country get from the far left or from socialism to now libertarian leader?
Yeah, that's a very interesting experiment in Argentina. I think it's because we've tried everything. There's nothing left to be tried in Argentina, and so we tried big government intervention, didn't work. We tried halfway government intervention, didn't work. Um, we've tried fascism, of course, didn't work. Um, so I think there was like kind of okay, what's the last thing we can try and see if we can make this country works for good. And I think because of people is completely fed up. So also the entire population is suffering a lot.
Triple
Now,
digit inflation.
uh,
Triple digit
yes,
inflation. John Ruddick, when he was there for the inauguration, posted a picture of holding wads of notes saying, "This is how much it cost me to have dinner." Like, it's just insane. The value of the currency has been devalued that much. Like, Australians are complaining about inflation now. But to get to that point where you're carrying around suitcases of cash because your currency is so worthless and people are already using the American dollar. I saw it when I went to Egypt. When I arrived, I had to pay my entry visa in American dollars because the Egyptian dollar is so devalued. So they're on that track as well. So your country, the dollar, it's just worthless. How can people, like, we're struggling in Australia to live under these conditions. So to get to that point in your country, and people are like, he's switching from the peso to the American dollar, and then eventually crypto. He's
Yeah,
said he wants Bitcoin as a currency.
yeah,
As an economist, do you think that that's why people have also voted in favor of Milei?
absolutely. Yeah, I've been checking the last inflation rate. It's been calculated. It's increasing 1% each, like each single day. Of course, with the measures that Millet have to put in place to fix or start fixing the issue, inflation will increase a little bit, and it's been increasing like in the last month 20%. So what he's trying to do is basically put the handbrake, and minimize or try to avoid the hyperinflation, which is coming. Um, and yeah, it's because Argentina that always has this problem. Have this problem is the political case, as Millet also references us. They don't want to give up their privileges, so they want to spend a lot, spend, and they think that okay, needs are basically unlimited, but
Mm.
resources are not. So when you increase your expenses a lot, you have different type of policies to confront them. It's basically you raise taxes, you get debt, or you print money. Well, guess what? Argentina did all of it. The point with with taxes is you might get that revenue until what point? Then you won't get any revenue at all because taxes are so high that you people will avoid to pay taxes. There's no way you will get revenue from increasing your tax revenue. Now, getting debt. Argentina has defaulted his debt many times. So the international finance markets, they will not give a penny to Argentina. Okay. Now, what they have to do is just print money, and that's the consequence of inflation. To try to solve the fiscal, not solving, basically, but yeah, try to keep up with the fiscal deficit. And then is when your currency it's not worth it because it's like any good in the market. When you have a supply of something, the price drop. And Argentina, they don't want peso. They never wanted pesos. If you want to buy a house, a property, or anything that compromises a big sacrifice in your life, you say no. If I'm selling you this apartment, you just give me American dollars. I'm not willing to accept your pesos.
Mm.
um, what we need to understand is basically is like um, Argentina works like a cryptocracy. So it is a system until Javier Milei arrives in office. Hopefully, it will change. But it's been a system that's completely designed so that a few people can benefit from the rest. So at this point in time, you have 8 million people living out of 20 million people. So it is a closed system. So it's not really a competitive system in any sense, not politically so much, because we have, unfortunately, a lot of corruption. So um, um, that's the issue. That's one of the biggest issues in Argentina too. Um, so you have corporations getting benefits, politicians getting benefits, and they are all in bed together. Um, so and these people are exploiting the rest. So unions, crony capitalists, politicians, um, they are those 20 million people that are getting benefits from government are government employees too, or people who live on the dole, uh, people who are getting government handouts, subsidies. And this is why the reason is the country is broke. So you have now it might be a 200% inflation rate. So people are not progressing anyway.
Mm. Yeah, I was talking to you before we recorded. I've been getting my news from Twitter or X and my like more liberty leaning news sources. And I thought this morning I'll just jump on ABC and see how they've been reporting Javier's election, and it's all, oh, he's got no experience. One of his advisors is his sister. I don't know about you, but my sister and brother are very good advisors to me because they'll tell me very bluntly the truth, even if I don't want to hear it. And they were also saying about him, his view on empowering the people instead of relying on government. And the ABC were very, well, I don't think that's a very good thing to introduce to the people. And I'm sitting here thinking, why would we not want to empower the person? Why would you want to create a culture where a person is dependent on the state? Like, as you said before, resources are, are infinite. There is a limit. So when you're printing money and doing all those things and you're seeing inflation go through the roof and everything costs more, like we're seeing in Australia, then the answer has to be with the individual. But Australians seem to keep turning towards the government to help them. And I also said to you before, where do you think Australia is in terms of our journey towards where Argentina is now?
Well, the ABC gets benefits from government too, and mainstream media is on the left side of politics, unfortunately, and that's what I think. Nowadays, with internet, with YouTube, with any other social, media platform, I don't think we need a national broadcaster, corporation or television. So because to me they are not reliable at all, and they want to keep their benefits because they are getting money
Mm,
from taxpayers. I
mm,
mean, if I would like to see if those journalists go and compete in the market, see if they are good enough to get their own show.
mm,
Um, but that's why they are criticizing Javier Milei because it's not convenient from the point of view of their political views. Now, in terms of Australia, it's just because I think the big mistake that liberalism made after the fall of Berlin Wall was basically retreat. We leave the political field empty for the left, to the left, so the socialist ideas flourish again. We sit and look and dedicated to manage the economy without preserving freedom and liberty. Um, and and that's a big mistake. That was a huge mistake. And when you leave that political field, open, and leave the gate open for those socialist ideas to come and and fertilize these horrible ideas, this is when you have a population later where they feel dependent on government. Or I can see young Australians with a lack of self-esteem. They think they are worthless. They don't have any value, and that's why government wants to basically make you understand that you can't you can't progress by yourself. It's like you need my help. So we have a saying in Argentina: it's like the government breaks your legs, but then they will give you a wheelchair and say thank you.
mm,
Thank you, because thanks me, you are on a wheelchair now. But I broke your legs before.
mm,
Um, and and yeah, I think this is what is happening, um, and it's partly our mistake as liberals and libertarians, where we retreat. We have to go back to the field and fight and convince people that our ideas are much better. Our ideas take people out of poverty. Our ideas are peaceful. Our ideas make societies thrive and progress. While on the other side is genocide.
mm,
More than 150 million of human beings were killed. Um, they are poor. They can't progress. It is what I find sometimes difficult is the fact that you can show them that, and they still will go through those ideas. So probably we need to be more passionate and convince them that you have an example, Argentina. Like at this point, Argentina is still in hell. It's trying to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but it was the richest country in the world in 1895, the richest country in the world. Okay, Buenos Aires was the Paris of South America. At that point, millions of migrants went to Argentina to live. My grandparents arrived in Argentina from Italy. Um, it was a thriving society, and then socialist ideas took place, um, and that was the end. So we became we were the first country in the world, and now we are 144.
Mm.
So um, yeah, I think it's the matter of being present and talk and confront people. Something that I feel is why Australia is heading towards that way is because here people are very politically correct. They are afraid of confrontation. Um, I I feel like in every single job or when you talk to people, say, oh, we shouldn't talk about this or shouldn't talk about that. And say, no, why? Because what the left does at this point is labeling you. They 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 will fire you, on the X now Twitter. Fire
Mm.
they will fire at you and say they will label you or tag you with new tags that you are fascist, you are racist, you are homophobic, you are. And
Mm.
people probably are afraid of that, of being called that way. That's why they don't talk. Well, no, you know that you're not. So we need to give good arguments and keep it up, keep the fight. Otherwise, they will take over, and not in 5 or 10 years, but if this country heads to that way, it might become Argentina in the future.
Mm. That's what terrifies me. It keeps me up at night sometimes, just despairing at the state of my country because I love Australia. My grandfather fled fascist Italy, which Peronism got some of their ideas from Mussolini's fascist ideas. So to see my grandfather escape that to come here, he would be turning in his grave if he saw the Australia of today, especially what happened during the pandemic and our liberties being trodden on. And in WA, like when you were talking before about the elite and how a few select people in Argentina benefit off of the rest, I see that every day in Western Australia. Western Australia is an oligarchy. It's controlled by a few rich businessmen who own the resources of this state. They're in bed with the government and the unions. The money stays at the top. We get thrown a few pittance off the table every now and then, like we have free public transport for a month. Well, public transport, we've already paid for that, so it should be free all the time. So I'm getting out there and having those conversations, and I know some people don't like my take on it or my memes, and I can be a bit shocking, but we have to be out there with the silent majority is not how we're going to win this debate. So I admire you for stepping up and following in like glorious footsteps and being the face of this is what happened in your country. Don't let it happen here. So thank you. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. I always say this. I've lost a country, and I don't want to lose another one.
Hmm.
Hopefully, I can get my country back.
Yes.
One
Well,
way.
let's talk about Javier. When he came onto the scene, he just kind of burst onto the scene. I saw photos of him dressed as the ANCAP hero and Rob Cribb. Yes, we want to see you dressed as that. You are the chief of staff to JR. You have to dress up for the. I've got my taxes theft dress. It's time for the boys to take one for the team. When he burst onto the scene and I saw his videos ripping down of all the government departments he was going to get rid of, and he's done that. He's /9, I think, out of 21. So he's a character. I think that's a good thing. I know the ABC, he's saying, describing him as Argentina's Donald Trump. I think it's if any time a politician has a bit of flair or character, I think they should have more character. I'm sick of these cookie cutter men in power. You see it in the Liberal Party all the time, like their RM Williams and their button up tops. Like, no, we need characters. We're people at the end of the day. What
Yes.
did you think? And were you excited when he got elected? How are you feeling about Javier?
Um, well, I've been following him since like 6, 7 years ago, since he started on television. And he, at that point, I think he became famous not only because of what he was saying. He always spoke with the truth, and the way he communicates the truth, and how, because he's a professor, so he's really 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 good at communicating. So he can't explain anything in terms of economics. Very simple, plain simple to the people. But also he got that sparkle,
Mm.
and that's very Argentinian. I don't know how to describe that, but we are like him. Most of us, we are outspoken. We have a very Italian, heritage. So we move our hands all the time, and we are very outspoken and loud and yell, and that's what I think it can work in Argentina. I don't know if a character like this will work in Australia, because I
Mm.
guess the cross is completely different. But he's a very honest man. He's doing what he promised, so he's delivering what he promised. He's not afraid. He said, um, "I'm committed, and if I had to give my life for this, I will do it." And he's doing it. It's the first time in history that we are seeing someone that is delivering what he's promised. Um,
Mm.
if he can't do it later because he will have some blockages, or the Congress might block some of his laws, or that will be a different story. But he is speeding up. He is on the wheel, accelerating 120 an hour, and very very determined to succeed. And that's why I think people are supporting him. When he gave his speech, um, after oath, he gave the oath. Is that correct? He swear as president.
Mm.
Um, I do remember this. I was looking at him and listening to his speech, and he said a phrase, that it says, "I don't have money." So we don't have money, and I have to repeat it. We don't have money. And all the crowd who was there at that time were, lifting their fist and say, "Yeah, chainsaw, chainsaw,
Mm.
chainsaw." The chainsaw program he has. Um, so I was thinking, this is a socialist country, and these people are basically saying, "Yeah, cut the government,
Mm.
cut the government. We want that. Yeah, bring your chainsaw, mate. Bring it on.
Mm.
Cut everything." So far, yeah, it was. I'm very happy. I think
Just to interrupt, do you think it's because government has intruded so much into the life of the people in every aspect? I liken it to the tentacles of an octopus. It
yes,
just reaches out, and all of a sudden it's in your everyday life. It affects how much you pay when you fill up your car. It affects how much you pay for your drink at the pub. It affects how much money you earn at the end of the day because of income tax. Like government, and that I'm talking about Australia too. But do you think in Argentina it's gotten so far that the government is just overpowering? It's nanny state. There's no individuals anymore, no concept of an individual. You're all slaves to the state. That people are like, no, I want to cut the chain, get the chainsaw, let me be
yeah,
free.
you spot on. You say it. One of the yesterday he addressed the nation, and gave another speech. So um, so he's going to deregulate the economy. So there's more than 300 laws that, as you seen the video, say, yeah, slash it, slash it, slash it. Every single, bureaucrat in government, every single ministry in government. Now, the word instead of slashes was repealed, 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 repealed. And one, just to give you an example, we got a law that it says the gondola law. Gondola law will be like the shelf law. So when you go to a supermarket, that law says, when he wants to repeal the law to stop the state from, listen to this word, measuring or meting the decisions of the Argentine merchants. So the law forced supermarkets to ensure that no brand took up more than 30% of the space on the same shelf, which only increased the operating cost of supermarkets and therefore ended up making the same products more expensive.
Governments once again creating more problems and increasing the prices of goods with their ideas.
Yeah, so
Mm.
that's a problem.
Mm.
Of course, repeal the rental law, the supply law, um, industrial promotion law. Um, we can go through them if you want, but national purchase law. Uh, it's insane. It is insane. It is insane. There is an economist on TV. He's also a businessman in Argentina. He's brilliant. He's brilliant, and he has his own business. He sells um, dairy, I would say. Um, and to go from one city, so you have the city of Buenos Aires, and then you have the province of Buenos Aires. So just to say to pass prosciutto from one city to another, he needs like I don't know how many permits. It's like going from Adelaide to Port Lincoln or something like that.
Mm.
Why do I need a permit or three or four or five permits? So that's what he's slashing, he's cutting.
Mm.
And of course, he's touching many, or taking away many benefits from a lot of people.
Yeah. And is that why I was talking to you before the show about this, his allegedly banning protests, which I wanted to get your take on that because I thought that's not a very libertarian thing to do. We were the ones saying during the lockdowns, you should still have the right to protest because you can do it safely. Like nobody wanted to get sick. No one wanted to kill grandma. People weren't going out to protest to spread anything. We just wanted to be heard. And you can do that safely. Interestingly, the Black Lives Matter protests were fine, but when people want to protest lockdowns, it was somehow we were going to be super spreaders. But then I saw in the news that Javier's banning protests. What's the actual case?
That's a lie. That's a lie. And yeah, that's what infuriates me because that people who lie that way are getting paid from taxpayers' money. They can't even do their job properly. What Javier did in the Ministry of Security will be Patricia Bullrich. So Argentina has been suffering for more than 20 years of piquete. Piquete is a word in that we came up with in Argentina, where basically radical extreme left corporations or social gatherings or anything block the streets. So it's not even constitutional. So yeah, you have the right to protest. Perfect. No one will take your right away. But you can't screw people's lives because you want to protest. So, and has been happening in Argentina for more than 20 years, where the city of Buenos Aires has been hostage of 30, 40,000, not less than that, 10,000 people. Okay. And then the way of these organizations have been dealing with government is okay, you give me money and I will not protest and I will not block the streets.
Mm.
I mean, Javier Milei said, no, you can protest, but what he did was cutting the payments. So because these organizations, what we're doing was basically getting the payments from government and distributing the payments to the people, so they become hostage to the poor. Now
Mm.
he cut that. So what he's doing is say, okay, you guys, the ones who are on the dole, you will get the benefit from the government directly. Okay. So if you don't want to lose your payment, don't block the street. You can go and protest, but if you block the street, you will be identified straight away, and we will take your payment out of you straight away. And it worked. So you have the right to protest. That's perfectly fine, but you can't basically uh, destroy people's lives because that's what happened in Argentina. People cannot go to work. People cannot go to school. People cannot go to elective surgery or anything like that. They also block ambulances sometimes. What?
Mm.
Why? And it's been unconstitutional, because in our constitution it says you have the right to protest, but also you have the right to circulate. No one can tell you, no one can block a street and tell you, no, you're not going that way. No. So that's what they did.
Mm.
They, you want to protest? Fine, do it on the side, on the pathway, footpath. Do it. Do not block the street.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
Another thing I wanted to ask you about is how he's cut 9 government departments. Can you just give us a quick overview of what departments he's cut off the top of your head and what that will mean for the people on the ground, or what do you think it'll mean?
I think he cut ministries from 18 to 9,
Mm.
secretariats. I got some of the numbers here, from 106 to 54. Yeah, so when you think about government departments in Argentina and all that kind of in that whiteboard he had, there's a lot of public servants that they don't add any value, to be honest, especially in a country where you have 50% of people under the poverty line.
Mm.
So one of the departments he cut it was the Ministry of Women. Why do we need to have a Ministry of Women?
Mm.
I don't get it. Everyone is equally behind law.
Mm.
Why do we need to have a ministry for us? There's no point. And they didn't do anything. It's basically um, money that was given to those organizations who are politically aligned with government. That's why those ministries were for. So wipe it out. We don't need that. Especially, it's like if you have a house. I mean, if your roof is falling, or maybe if you have, no, 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 something on your wall, but you cannot afford to eat, what would you do? Would you paint the house, or would you eat before? Right?
Mm.
It's easy. So yeah, of course, the opposition is nuts. It's crazy because they are taking away their privileges, but 55% of the population voted for him, so he has that power.
Mm.
People didn't want more public servants. It's 8 million people working in the private sector trying to maintain another 20 million.
Mm.
Unsustainable.
Yes, the return on investment from some of our public servants, even in Australia, is questionable. And you're
Yes,
living in a state where the biggest employer, I think, is the the
yes,
government, South
it's the
Australia.
government.
Yes,
It is the government.
yes,
So not worth it.
no.
Uh, not worth it.
But that's when you get stuck in this cycle of at election time, people will vote for whoever's going to let them keep their job,
Yeah,
even if their job is not necessarily delivering the public much benefit, if any at all. So every time, and it's
correct.
typically the Labor Party or, sometimes the Liberal Party who have known to create more jobs for defence, for example, that's where you get reliant on the state. And so we'll vote for whoever keeps your job. And then all of a sudden, government keeps growing and growing and growing, and people don't want to vote for someone who's going to cut their job. Maybe in Australia we'll get there one day, because that's what's causing all the problems at the moment. That's the conversations I have about, oh, why is everything so expensive? Is a question that a girl at work said the other day. Maybe it's because the government locked down the economy for 2.5 years in our state. Maybe that's why.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. And that's government affecting our lives. I did want to talk to you, to go back a few steps. So we talked about how your country was the richest, like Buenos Aires, the Paris of South America. And now looking at it today, it's not a safe place. I remember when I met you, I was asking, because I really want to go there. I am going to go to Buenos Aires. And you said it's not safe. Um, do you think it was that period, 1940s, 1950s, with Colonel Juan Peron and Eva Peron, that really set the country back? Or was it before then? When did it exactly turn from this prosperous, vibrant nation to full-blown socialism?
Since probably 1930, after a military coup. Um, and then Peron was part of that military coup. Basically, that was in 1940 anyway, but there was another military coup in 1930. Um, and then Peron was part of a different. Yeah, he was part of the military in 1943, and they did another military coup, and he was a very good friend of Mussolini, and he took the fascist, the corporatist ideas from fascism into Argentina. So yes, um, and the problem is I will always say this is just because Argentina was poor in 18, let's say 1830, 1835. We became independent in 1916. And the liberal ideas flourished in that period of time. We call it the 80 generations, what we call it, with very bright minds that say, okay, Argentina should be open to the world, be very welcome, free trade. Um, we set up like public education, and everyone were very well educated at the time. Uh, but when you don't have probably very solid institutions, that's what happened to Argentina, I think. This is when the change happened, and when you have military coups, and they just basically to knock on the door and basically impose you a way of life. That's when it changed. So yeah, Peron. We always say that Peron is the the benchmark where populism basically exploded in Argentina,
Mm,
uh, and he basically make people poorer and more dependent and relying on government. This is when inflation kick off in Argentina. Actually, Argentina, I don't remember exactly the date, but didn't have a central bank until 1935. Then
mm,
it was a mixed central bank, half private, half public. And Peron nationalized the central bank
mm,
of Argentina. So Argentina was so rich at the moment that he could give it away money
mm.
all the time. Give away money, 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 money. And this is when, okay, but it's simple. If someone gives you money for free, you don't have to work.
For
Why
free.
would you bother? Yeah, free, but of course it's not. But why would you bother?
Mm.
No. And that's what happened. It changed the mentality. It's a kleptocracy.
That's the other thing that I am highly skeptical and critical of is governments changing the culture of the people. I'm seeing it here from, I'm very passionate about my shooting and my firearms. I've seen that since 1996 when we had the buyback, that the Australian government wanted to change the culture of hunting and shooting in Australia, because before that we were very like laid back nation. There's a movie called They're a Strange Mob or They're a Weird Mob. I encourage you to watch it. It's about
Okay.
an Italian migrant who came to Australia, and it's very comical, and the laid back larrikin, and he went out hunting and they just picked the guns out of the cupboard and went out because we are a safe people. We didn't have a high rate of gun violence before 96. There's been one-off incidents that can be managed without punishing all of us, but it's government changing the culture and painting people who like guns as strange, or someone to be wary of, which I don't think is fair at all. Humans are inherently good. There are a few evil people, and that's why you have some regulation and laws, but other than that, the starting point should be a person is innocent and good until they're proven not to be. And that's why I'm very opposed to the way that gun control is managed in our country. But I'm digressing. One of the quotes from Eva Peron, when we were talking about money, 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 she said, "Keeping books on social aid is capitalistic nonsense. I just use the money for the poor. I can't stop to count it." So when you have people like that managing the country's economy and the books, that's why we've got to this point. And we're seeing it in Australia with the government will pay 40% of your loan to build a house. That's the government having a share in your own home. You no longer own that. That's the government owning. So what's to stop them taking it away from you? That's what I'm scared about happening in Australia. What do you think of the way that we're going here? And what do you think of that kind of commentary from Eva Peron about just giving away money?
It's the problems when they take over education and they indoctrinate you. They tell you what you have to think, and there's no critical thinking.
Mm,
Mm, uh, People, I think, and I think this is a cycle, but in Argentina, just people, they don't believe in government anymore. But here, people really believe in government. So if government says jump off the Sydney Harbour Bridge, they will go and jump off. Probably not every single Australian, but most of them probably, because they believe in government. And I get that because I think Australia has always been very serious in terms of politics, but it might be dangerous at the same time because there's a fine line where you can cross. Um, it's just I think we're in a good period of time where there's there's other sources. Okay, there's not only the ABC or I don't know any government agency that will tell you what to think, what to do. So we have you, okay, you have your show, all the influencers, internet give us access to, books. So it's a matter of being more conscious and be more open and say, okay, why these people are telling me this? Why what's the positive, the negatives, what's the advantages, the drawbacks? Let's figure out something else. Is there another solution for this? Um, so I think it's more like we should be very outspoken and say okay, confront confront okay, ask questions like hey, why you think that way? If you think that way, why is that? Can you give me a good argument? What's this? And I think if you start doing that with people, start bringing them to your field and expose their ignorance, I think we can win. But we have to be committed and we have to be, you know, in that sort of position. I know it's stressing, but yeah, we don't have to be quiet and keep silent um, because otherwise, government has the resources, they have the money, they have the power, and they will tell everyone what they have to do. With Eva Peron, the quote you said, I have books. I should have one at my house actually in Argentina. See if I can find it and bring it. But there's many pictures online, and this is something that I showed during my presentation at Friedman. Is where my mom, when she was at primary school when Evita Peron passed away, and on the books it said, "Evita loves me, Peron loves me." So they taught kids how to read that way instead of my mom loves me. That's a phrase, that's a sentence. Now it's Evita loves me.
mm,
Um, we are not get there in Australia, but the kind of message behind that sentence is resonating. It's
mm,
here. That's what I feel.
mm. Yeah, I find her a fascinating figure, particularly given her upbringing in poverty and she wasn't from the right caste or the right class, and how she did genuinely care about the people. There's no question about that. She loved the Argentinian people. I think I am Argentina is one of her quotes, but just the idea of the endless supply of money. Unfortunately, that's not how the world works. I would love to give, like, I'm such an empathetic person when someone, I had a customer at work because at the moment I'm working in beauty because it's very hard to get a job in Western Australia when you're critical of the government and they control everything. Everything. I've been offered jobs at mining companies, but I have to delete my accounts and I can't criticize the government because they get subsidized by the government. Like, that's the society that I live in. So I'm slumming it in the trenches working in beauty at Christmas time, which is a bit challenging. But um, one of the girls at work, like her mum's in hospital, so I'm like, I'll come visit you. Or a customer the other day, you know, she was crying about something, so I'm hugging her. I want people to be happy, but I know, because I've read, because I've studied, because I've traveled, because I've talked to people like you, that government is not the answer. They can help you for a small period of time when you need it the most, but not long term, because then you're creating a scenario, a situation, a country where we're all dependent on someone else, to the point that there's not enough resources to go around. And that's where it got to in Argentina, and that's where it's becoming to get to in Australia. And I don't want to see that happen. So that's why it's important that, like you said, we reclaim the space. And unfortunately, the left are so far ahead of our view of politics, which is libertarianism. It's not conservatism. I'm sick of being confused as a conservative. It's liberty. Conservatives are just as dangerous to liberty as progressives sometimes. Conservatives are just as dangerous to liberty as progressives. I'm saying that again. So we have a lot of work to do. And it's interesting that you brought up education and how they've taken over those institutions, because that's happened here as well. Not so much when I was at uni SA back in 2003. I saw a little bit of it then, but it was always, you could still be critical and push back. But talking to people today, the left have completely taken over universities. You see it. You've studied climate change. I'm sure there was things that they were teaching you that you were thinking, hang on a second, somehow it's always costing more money from the taxpayer to fix the weather. And it's a whole other racketeer happening. Is that what you saw when you were studying climate change?
I did climate change when I was doing my PhD, not when I did my bachelor's, but I was I work in a very statistical point of view, like very facts, and see, okay, how climate variability is working and changing and all sort of that with data. Now you have two options then after that. Climate has always been changing. Always, always. The agenda is, okay, we need the government to fix this. While libertarians, we say, no, we don't need the government. Why don't we give people property rights? But the property rights kind of thing is not something that you can mention at university. It should be a management plan. Taxpayers' money involved, more government regulations, more this, more that, and everything can have to come from the government instead of a private initiative. Like I don't get the idea like why we don't go nuclear.
Mm.
I don't get it. It's too, even Argentina has nuclear power. Argentina, we never had an issue. Like really, Europe, America, you want to go clean, go nuclear. But you might be affecting some again mates that have been build their business with their mates in government. But the problem is, and it's very easy to I don't want to use the word defeat, but to challenge Australians sometimes because they although I'm an Australian too now, but they are not critical thinkers sometimes, and just replicate and reproduce what they listened. But when you basically challenge them, okay, well, just tell me why you think that way and the reason, and why should we bring more benefits? Not nuclear, but solar panels than nuclear. They don't know why you have to cut trees to put solar panels everywhere where it's not reliable, scalable.
Because they've been told by the government it's a solution. They
That's the
don't
solution.
think about, you can't recycle solar panel material. Yeah. Like we've been taught about recycling and reusing. Well, you can't recycle them. And some of these solar panels are being built in China by slaves.
Yes.
The truth. But you're right, Australians are very apathetic, sometimes pathetically apathetic. And I hate saying that about my own people, but I see it in the shooting world. That's why we're at this point where all of a sudden the government are the only ones with guns And coming from a country that had military coups, I'm sure that
Yeah.
sends shivers down your spine to think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's we are very politically correct in this country, too
Mm,
much, and political correctness will kill us. Will kill us because it takes a point where you can't give your own opinion and you are censoring yourself. Why would you do that?
mm,
Every you have to think very very thoughtfully, like uh, what I'm going to say because someone will be offended. Why? I'm not insulting you. I'm just giving my point of view. Why you will feel offended? Like,
mm,
and this is what I feel is happening. But I'm not going to, uh, give one single inch. It's like,
mm,
as long as you are respectful, you can give your point of view. We
mm.
shouldn't be afraid of that. If we are afraid of giving our point of view and talk, we are lost, completely lost. And yes, we will lose the country.
I would encourage people to have courage. I know it's
That's
easier
correct.
said than done. Maybe I'm lucky I've grew up in a family and culture like the Italian where, you could say what you thought, but if you got screamed at, that's the price you pay. But
Yeah.
it was all respectful debate. Freedom
Yes.
of speech is what even the Anzacs died for, freedom. So you're going home to Argentina in March.
Yeah, in March
What
for
do you
5 weeks.
what do you expect to see?
I don't know if it's going to change much from December to March, but I will be very very happy if I can see the same people that I saw last year with a different kind of face in when I was saying that to Tova the last time I spoke to him. Last time when I went to Argentina, people were so sad. Like they couldn't even look at you at the eyes, and it was sadness everywhere. Sadness, resignation. It was like, okay, there's nothing we can do. That was a message I got. We are lost, and there's nothing. It's like going on a ship with heading to anywhere. Like there's no direction. I hope, although is going to be critical because Milei's economic plan will. He's doing his best, but the implications in the economy and the results you will see in a more medium longer term. Uh, but at least what I expect is just see the same people and see a different different face. I don't know. I hope they can smile more. And yeah, that's what I aim for.
Hmm.
I feel that happiness again.
Well, I hope that we don't lose you back to your country because our
I will
country,
come back. Don't worry.
our country is swinging the wrong way, the way away from liberty. And
Yeah,
your country is swinging back to liberty. It seems with Javier, we'll see what happens. You never know until, actions speak louder than words in
yeah,
every
absolutely.
aspect of life. But there is hope.
There is hope, and if you want to go, let me know. I'll have plenty of friends there.
Absolutely. I cannot wait. I will be in Buenos Aires one day with you. I can feel it. I
That
will
would be
be
great.
back. I will be back in Adelaide in February, actually. So I would
Well,
love
let's catch
to.
up.
We will have some wine
Yes,
for
let's catch up.
sure. And I'll meet your beautiful partner. And
Thank you.
thank you for everything you do. It's so great to meet you. I remember after I gave my speech at Friedman, because I spoke about what happened in Western Australia with the lockdowns and some of the terrible things that happened here. Just the other day, I met with a father whose young daughter committed suicide because she wasn't allowed back in WA in 2021, a year and a half into the pandemic. She was not allowed to travel, and it was too much for her. And I spoke about things like that in Friedman, and you gave me a big hug afterwards. And I hadn't even met you before, and it was just beautiful. So thank you for being a beautiful human. Thank you for spreading the word of liberty. Thank you for putting all your time and effort into studying economies and subjects like that sometimes
My
it's a
pleasure.
it's a bit of a drag. I'm sure Dr. John Humphreys would love chatting to you, but I
I've
do.
been in touch with him. We have plenty of things to do together.
I should do one with you and Dr. Humphreys and also Duncan Spender. He was a senator for a brief period of time. He's an economist as well, libertarian economist. Our time will come in
Yes,
Australia.
we need to keep fighting.
We will. Thank you for joining me on the show. I'll get JR on again one day, but this was more than enough. So thank you again.
Thank you for inviting me.
That's okay. I'm Kate Pantanel. This is Dr. Melisa Albisetti. Follow her on X and all your platforms, and we will see you again very soon for another interesting chat. Thanks, everyone.